Thanks for having. Um, so I hope everyone is well today on this kind of gloomy, or at least it's gloomy in my neighborhood. But it's supposed to be hot at some point today, so that's kind of exciting. So I'm going to talk a bit about perhaps some ways you can talk about the impact part in your application. So let's get going. And yeah, and feel free, this is a small group, so if I'm not making sense, or if you have any questions, just speak up, raise your hand, put it in the chat. And I know Katie and Michelle are monitoring the chat. I don't know if I'll be able to see it because it's always tricky when you're the presenter, but someone will let me know if you have any questions or if I'm saying something which seems bonkers, and then I can try and explain it a little bit better. So there are two versions of these slides. There's a brief version, which is what I'm going to be using, and there's a detailed version because when I do the demo, I'm going to be going into various tools and doing a lot of like click here, do here, here, scroll down, and that can be a bit overwhelming. So rather than have you watch me move quickly or try and move quickly and then not then like 3 months from now or next year or something be like, oh, that librarian showed me some things and I don't remember exactly how to do it. You can just refer to the slides and I'll just put the links in the chat. Hang on. Oh, except I don't know. I always get this is confusing because now I can't see the chat. Oh, it's because this thing. Sorry, talking to myself. Okay, here is the chat and here are the slides. So there you go, if you want to refer to the slides later on. Okay, so all right, so first off, I have to say I did look at the page on the SSHRC site about how to describe your impact for your journal, and I would say that it's all a bit vague. There was mentions, or at least what I saw was seemed vague. It was seemed to be mentioned, what was mentioned was alt metrics or traditional metrics. And so based on that, sounds like you can talk about lots of things, which actually is great because there are so many ways that we can approach impact. And those will depend on what your journal is about, what discipline your journal is in. So having one way to measure impact would probably get me quite concerned. So I'm happy to see that it's all kind of vague and fuzzy, and then you can use the data that works best for your journal. So just so we're all on the same page here, as I mentioned before, academic journals are not the same. They differ. They have different goals and priorities, different backgrounds. So we would never measure them in the same way. Citation-based metrics like the journal impact factor definitely have a lot of issues, which are you can easily find literature about all their problems, but they're definitely not evil, and they are trying to tell us something. So just, go into it with that approach. And usually we try and advise when we're working with people to start measuring the things that make sense for your journal, what your journal is trying to achieve, and try and measure that if you're able to. And then lastly, there's a lot of stuff regarding your journal and its impact that you have no control over at all. And just like don't stress out about that stuff. There's no point in that. That's actually probably good advice for life in general. But don't stress about the stuff that you don't have any control over. So we're going to start this presentation talking about journal level indicators. And so what do these indicators actually measure? They measure citations. And so it's important to understand what do citations represent. And for academics, or for everyone, I guess, they only really measure attention from other academics. So they don't indicate anything about whether people are reading your journal or not, about whether the articles in your journal are changing lives or making people feel better, or any of that, or improving people's quality of life or quality of their work life. It's just basically attention from other academics. So just keep that in mind. They're not the be all and the end all. So to figure out what journal level indicators are available for your journal, it really depends on where your journal is indexed. So if your journal is indexed in the Web of Science core collection, we'll be talking in this presentation. Well, there are more indicators than what's here, but the ones we'll be talking about today are the journal impact factor, which is a well-known but highly problematic indicator, and also the journal citation indicator. And in Scopus, you can use the SCImago journal rank, site score, and SNP, which is a normalized indicator. OpenAlex is also a place where we can get citation-based data for journals. Unfortunately, they don't have any journal level indicators. And so I'm not going to cover it in this demo, but there is information about using OpenAlex in the detailed slides. So you can refer to that if your journal is not indexed in the Web of Science core collection or in Scopus. So another place where we can get information about citations is in Google Scholar. Unfortunately, they don't have any journal level indicators in there. And the only thing I did see was they have a list by subject area, but the subject area is like really broad, like health or something like that. And you can get a list of the top 20, 10 or 20 journals by those broad subject areas. So I'm gonna guess if you're applying for this grant, you're probably not gonna be on that list, but if you are, definitely you could mention that. So I don't think Google Scholar maybe is the best place to find data. Also, it's hard to actually retrieve the data. Although I guess you could pull citations for each of the articles, but I mean that's really going to be a lot of work. So I'm not going to be talking about Google Scholar today. So just in trying to understand these indicators, just remember that context is everything and to compare like to like. And so just in terms of context, so we would never, if you're wanted to figure out if you were healthy or not, you would never just look at one sort of aspect of your body. So you would never just look at your weight to determine if you're healthy or not. And also weight on its own, that number, the value, doesn't really indicate anything without any context. So, what exactly is a healthy weight? So, is 120 pounds a healthy weight? Well, it could be if you're like 5'1", female, and 18 years old. But if you're 6'5", male, and 65 years old, that's probably a little underweight. And if you're 6 years old and 3 feet 5 inches, 120 pounds is probably not a healthy weight. But again, it's the context. So we need to have that context piece. So we need to know, what is being measured, what is it, a little bit about the journal to understand the values. So putting some contextual data when you're using indicators is very helpful. So how do we view these indicators? So we're going to start with journal citation reports, and that's where we can see data, journal level indicators from the Web of Science core collection. So if your journal is not indexed in the Web of Science core collection, you're not going to be able to use these indicators. And if you don't know whether your journal is indexed there or not, you can just try and search it up in the Web of Science, or you can use their master journal list. And I've got a link to that in the slides. So let's go to JCR. Okay, so here we are, and let's just get in there. Okay, let's do a few little things. Okay, so here you can search by journal title, or you can just use ISSN number, whichever one you like. So I'm going to look up this journal, Canadian Journal of Family and Youth. Oh, I spelled family wrong, so it's probably not going to come up. Family and Youth. And here it is. So we will go to the page for this journal. And so here it is. So I'm just going to scroll down. So there's just some information about, oh, sorry, the mail lady is here and I'm just going to ignore her. I can see that it is in the category of family studies. That's a journal subject area. And we'll scroll down, and here is the journal impact factor value for this journal. But what does it mean? Well, we don't know. It's 0.3. Is that good? Is that bad? Who knows? We need more contextual information to determine that. I can see here that the journal impact factor, here's a trend for this journal. So here in this year, 2022, it was 0.6. Then it went down quite a bit in 2023. And then in 2024, it went up a little bit. So I guess we could say it's rising, but I don't know. It doesn't, things are not looking great here, I would say, for this journal. But let's just scroll down a little bit and see what other information we can find. So there's another indicator here, the journal citation indicator. This is a normalized measure, and this number actually represents something. We can look at this number, unlike the journal impact factor where we don't know what that really means. This is 0.2. So here I can see immediately that this is not great for this journal. So for an average number is 1. So anything above 1 means the journal is performing at average for its subject category. So this journal, in terms of citation, is performing below average. So let's just go down a little bit further and see what other information we can get here. There's some information about open access, so you may want to talk about that. But here, this is the most valuable information for understanding these indicators. So is the rank. So journal impact factor, the value was 0.3, which seems a little low. And here we know it is quite low. So there are 66 journals in the subject category of family studies, and this journal is ranked 63rd. So it's not at the top, but that's okay because we can still make a case for this journal in terms of citations later on, and I'll show you how to do that. And then for the journal citation indicator, again, not surprising, this journal is ranked quite low at 62 out of 66. But what I think is important to note is that this journal, although it's not ranked high when compared to its other journals in the subject category, it's still indexed in the Web of Science journal, Web of Science core collection. So we can make a case for that when we talk about this data, when we write up a little narrative about our journal when we apply for our award. So we'll just go down a little bit further. I did want to show you some other metrics which you can use, which are these ones here, additional metrics. So we'll just ignore this eigenfactor score. But if you're looking at your journal when you're using journal citation reports and any of these normalized values, so normalized eigenfactor or article influence score, if the values are 1 or above, that means that in terms of what these indicators measure, your journal is performing at average if it's 1 or above average if it's above 1. So those are some indicators you may want to look at for your journal if you want to talk about citation metrics. Okay, so let's go back up to the top and I'll show you how we can still make a better case for our journal using journal citation reports. So it's in the category of family studies. So I'm going to click on here. And then we can see what other journals are in that category. Then maybe we can understand things a little bit better. So here are some other titles. And of course, the ones with the highest impact factor are at the top. And I see here, just scrolling this quickly, it looks like there are quite a few health journals. So this trauma, violence, and abuse, BMJ, sexual and reproductive health, Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy, that could have a health bend. So health, and here's another one, Perspectives on Sexual, and oh, I mentioned that one already, I think. Anyways, there's a lot of health journals here. So that always throws things out of kilter for social sciences journals. So basically what Web of Science is doing is it's comparing a journal. This journal of family and youth is definitely a social science journal. It's not a health journal, but they're comparing a social science journal to some health journals with a health bend. So that is maybe not a useful way to understanding how our journal is performing. So let's make things a little bit better, and we're going to do that by using the filter option here. So I'm going to click on here, and let's just look at the other Canadian journals in this subject category of family studies. And to do that, I'm just going to type in here, Canada, and then I'm going to click the apply button. And now I have 4 Canadian journals in this family studies. And when I do my write-up about my impact, I'm going to compare myself to this journal. And here I'm doing much better. So all of these Canadian journals are also on the in the fourth quartile, so at the bottom. So that's making me feel a little bit better. And actually, I think in one of these indicators, is this JCI? No, it's not this one. It's this journal impact factor. I'm actually doing better than one of the other journals. So that's great. So that I have more, I'm sort of fine tuning how I'm comparing my journal and I'm looking better already. So that is making me feel much better about my journal and what I can say about it. So I'm just going to go back to the slides and let me just check in with you all and see if there are any questions from anyone. No? Okay, we're all good? All right. I'm going to make you all disappear again and I will continue talking. Okay, so here's just my recap. If you want to use journal citation reports for your journal, I'm going to recommend using the ranking, the journal impact factor rank. Don't use a number on its own because as I mentioned before,
Jane,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is a hand up
Okay,
from Brent.
great. Let me make it so I can see people again. Brent, what is your question?
Oh, good. I'm unmuted. You can hear me.
Yep.
Oh, and this is there we go. Hi, here I am. Thank you so much for the information so far. I just wondered if you have any advice on building a counter narrative around metrics. Like, I understand why like the AJS committee will be looking at metrics, like the ones you've been talking, impact factor. Like, I really like the point you made with the first rating where it's like, what does this even mean? We're not sure.
Yeah.
Um, like, is there a case that one could make to sort of like uh, maybe not include some of
Yeah.
these?
Yeah. I would
And
say definitely.
what are some points one would want to hit in making that case?
Well, if your journal is a newer journal, these metrics don't work, never will work well. So that's one thing. There's all kinds of literature about all the problems with the journal impact factor. And actually, I think I have some slides buried somewhere in my Google Drive which outline those specifically, but you can just choose not to talk about journal impact factor because that one is really a problematic one. And you can also you don't have to use any of these journal level indicators. You can talk about something entirely different if that doesn't make sense for your journal. There's nowhere does it say you have to talk and provide journal impact factor or any of these indicators. It just said traditional, it just says traditional metric. So you can talk about something else. That would be my advice. Like I would say, because you're making a case for your journal, just pick and choose what makes you look good. If it's not making you look good, don't use it because why would you do, you don't want to look bad. Like you want to get the money, right? So it's all about the money. So is that helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Yeah. Okay, so so are there any other questions? No. Okay, I'm gonna make you all disappear again, and then I will continue with my slides. All right. So yeah, so use that ranking value. If you're going to use journal impact factor, any normalized indicators which have a value of 1 or above, you want to talk about that. If you need to find relevant comparators, use those refined categories, features. And if none of these values are great and you are indexed in the Web of Science core collection, that in itself is something important. And I've got a slide at the end where I talk about how you can still make your journal sound amazing, even if you're not doing well on any of these indicators. So don't worry there. We can still make you sound great. Okay, so so let's see if we can get any, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna do this because I'm worried about time, but in this my detailed slides, I have information about how you can use Scopus to also find journal level indicators. And you can go through those steps on your own. And if you have any questions, just get in touch. Basically, just search up your journal, then you look at the indicators and you look at the rankings and see how you perform there. And if your journal, to see if your journal is indexed in Scopus, you just need to search it up using the sources option, which is shown on the next slide. in the detailed slide, so you can check that out. Is that okay? Did anybody really want to go into Scopus and see what we can do there? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody too upset about not going into Scopus, so we will ignore Scopus. One thing though with Scopus is that if you can't find finding more relevant comparators is much more difficult to do. So there is one thing I did want to show you all in journal citation reports on how you can do that. And so if we go back here to our, actually, let's look up a different journal. Let's do this one, Canadian Journal of Nonprofit and Social Economy Research. Here. If you're having trouble finding, like if you do those like refined to Canadian journals and you're still not doing well, or it seems like the journals you're being compared to are not really what your journal is all about, because again, these subject categories are quite broad. One thing you can do is if you scroll down here to the bottom of this page, they have these journal citation relationships. So these are the journals which are citing your journal, and then here are the journals which your journal authors cite. So you can go through this list and see if there's any journals here which are on the same topic, like on this one, BMC psychiatry. That's probably not great to compare this journal to that one because that's a health journal. But if there are journals here, could be one way to find. You can make a list of those, and then you have to look up each one individually. So it's kind of a bit of work, but that could be one way to find relevant journals to compare your journal to if you want to use any of these indicators. All right. Okay, so we talked about citation-based indicators, but we probably should be talking about some other things, as Brent had hinted at in his question earlier. So if you have access to any of this data, so article views, downloads, saves, social media, mentions or engagement, library subscriptions if your journal is not open access, or even if it is open access, I guess that could be useful. You can also talk about things like, are you a member of COPE? Are you included in the directory of open access journals, which I think is one of the things that is mentioned specifically in this grant. And you can also talk about where your journal is indexed. And if none of this sounds familiar to any of you, my advice would be to get in touch with your publisher and ask them if they have any of this data available to you or if they know where you can find it. All right. And then some other possibilities that you could talk about that relate to bibliometrics and the information we can get in the tools, the bibliometric tools that we use, Web of Science, OpenAlex, and Scopus, is if your journal has a specific focus on Canada, you can talk about your Canadian, how many Canadian authors you have. You can talk about where those authors come from. So which parts of Canada or Canadian institutions are represented amongst your authors. You can also talk about the topics that are represented in your journal and why those topics are important for Canadians and Canadian scholarship. And there's probably lots of other things that I'm not thinking of. So I will ask all of you if you have any other ideas of things that you could talk about using bibliometric data. And then I have the same questions for journals that may have a more international spread. You can talk about where your authors come from, what institutions they represent, and I'm sure there's lots of other things that I'm not thinking of. And we can get that data using bibliometrics, and the information on how to get all of that author data is in the detailed slides. So I have information on how you can pull data about how many authors are from Canada, what institutions they're from, and you can talk about all of that. And the information on how to get that information is in the slides, those other set of slides. So I made this text. Let me just check in. Does anybody have any questions or had any ideas about other data we could get from bibliometric data? No? Okay. Well, I made this text. I made this narrative for this Canadian Journal of Family and Youth. And should I read it to you? I don't know. I'll read it to you and you can tell me if it's good or if it's bad. I don't know. I've never applied for this award, so I have really no idea if it's good or not. Oh, Brent is giving me a thumbs up. Hopefully that's because it's a good sentence. So here I talk. The Canadian Journal of Family and Youth, is a peer-reviewed academic journal published by the University of Alberta Library. It has been publishing Canadian research related to family and youth since 2008. In terms of academic impact, this journal is ranked third by Journal Citation Indicator Value and fourth for Journal Impact Factor Value, when compared to other Canadian journals in the subject category of family studies. So that is much better than saying we are ranked 63rd out of 66, right? So you just got to put a little spin on it. Authors of our papers come from 98 different academic institutions representing all Canadian provinces except for Prince Edward Island. This journal is currently indexed in the Web of Science Core Collection, which means it has undergone a vigorous peer review process by academics who have assessed its quality, publishing and editorial practices, peer review process, and the rigor of its articles. Although our journal has a specific focus on topics relevant to Canadians and Canadian policymakers, our publications have been cited by authors from 55 different countries, and we have published papers written by authors from a wide range of countries, including Nigeria, Ireland, UK, Pakistan, and the US. Our international influence is also revealed in the policy citations the journal has received from 9 different nations and several international organizations, including the Nordic Council and the OECD. Some of the topics published in our journal have explored subject areas such as Canadian identity and representation, family dynamics, LGBTQ+, well-being and identity, and early childhood education. This research provides underlying understandings and evidence to support families and community supports across Canada. So that's what I came up with, and that was me just working on this slide, so not really knowing anything about this journal. So yeah, so I'll let you all be the judge. And if this is terrible, just let me know. And this is only just talking about the bibliometric piece, the stuff I was able to find out in Web of Science and Scopus. So I'm sure there's lots as journal people working for these journals or journal editors that you would have access to much other information like articles, views, and downloads and all of that. But so that's pretty much the end of the demo part of this presentation. And I'm just happy to take any questions from any of you and any feedback from any of you about any of the stuff I covered, or if you have any other ideas for data that could be useful for this, the application that you're going to submit. And I'll stop sharing the slides now.